I'll be discussing the concept of intersections now, and it's the 6th video in the series on geometry and programming in BitByBit. It's the tutorial series that deals with the basic concepts of BitByBit, and we went through points, lines, polylines, curves, and surfaces already. And now it's time to talk about the intersections. Later on we will move on to talk about tags, and then of course we will deal with transformations and vectors in the future videos, but today it's the intersections. And intersections are things that can exist between various entities, and so far we implemented support for intersections between two curves, the curve and the surface, and two surfaces. So these intersections can be found. Intersections exist in various forms. So for example, the intersections between two curves, they can be multiple, first of all. So all of these components return a list of intersection information. So the curves can have single or multiple intersections. Well, they can also, of course, have no intersections if they are far away from each other. The intersection between the curve and the surface, that can be a point, of course, or multiple points. So, and the intersections between surfaces are usually curves. So it will return us the list of curves, and we will see how that look like in a bit. I'll, as usual, begin with an empty canvas. We'll start the script with this grid component in it, and I'll begin constructing the geometry that intersects each other. So what I'll do is I'll create two circles, and I will be looking for intersections between them. To do that, I just drop this component, and I can draw this curve immediately. It's not a very difficult thing to do. So let's increase the radius just a bit, and what I will do is I'll duplicate this code, and we'll create the circle on the center that is a bit higher than the original. So you see that now we have those two curves, and they clearly intersect each other in this point and that point. To find the intersection exactly on where we want it to be, we will use the component, this one. So we will find the intersection of curve with curve, and to do that we also need to create the component circle 1, the variable, and then circle 2 variable. We will use those as we used to do in all the other videos as well, as a data container, so that we don't need to, so that we can use that same data in multiple places. And there's already, of course, video explaining the variables in BitByBit, so you can check it out if you missed it. So we created two variables, we assigned two circles on them, and we will use now those variables for drawing the circles. And here we go, circle 2. We can change its color a bit to the lighter, so we sort of have, so we shouldn't keep floating components like this, because they create the errors. They say, yeah, the input is missing, curve must be provided. So that's standard check, the validation check that BitByBit does on components. Good to see that it still works. Okay, so now we're ready to use those circle variables to check for intersections. So we add the circle 1 intersection with circle 2, and now you see that there's still just output coming and it's not being used yet. And to use this output we will use these components from apply category, and there are quite a few things to choose from. So you see here that we can get parameters on first curve of curve intersection, or we can find points on first curve of curve intersection. So that means that it will find the points on this circle where the intersections happen. And let's do that so that we could just see if everything works. And now so this component returns points, and we can then visualize, of course, the points with this draw points mesh component, and we provide it with points, and let's see if it worked correctly. I will increase the size of those intersection points, and let's run this code. Okay, so now the error disappeared here, and in 3D space we see that it correctly identified 2 intersection points between those circles, so here and here. It's not a very complicated it's not a complicated geometry. The circles are simple NURB curves, but intersections usually can be found on any kinds of curves in BitByBit. So that was it for this kind of intersection. Of course, we can now try and find the intersection between the circle and, for example, a sphere. So let's make it more maybe simple. Let's use a cylinder, and let's see if we can position it in a way that we could find the intersection. So we didn't create the cylinder yet. We can do that by using this component. So it's a cylinder on the axis of radius 0.5 with a height of 2. Let's first use the draw surface component to draw the cylinder, and let's pick the color for the cylinder to be blue, and let's draw it. So you see that now the cylinder was drawn, and indeed it does intersect with the first curve and with the second curve, but we will be looking just for intersections between one curve and the surface. I will make the cylinder a bit higher, so twice as high, and maybe the radius twice as big, to just, no, it's a bit too much, so yes, let's keep it on 1. Okay, and maybe it's a little too high for the visualization purposes. Okay, so now you see that the cylinder intersects the circle, and we will be looking for those intersection points with our intersection component that deals with curves and surfaces. Okay, so we repeat the same approach. We will visualize the points of that intersection. We will intersect the curve and the surface. We will remove this component, and we will add circle 1 as the curve, and we still need to create a variable for the cylinder to just be able to visualize it. And cylinder surface create, let's set its value here to the cylinder itself. Let's find that variable of the cylinder surface. So this will draw the surface, and this will find the intersections if all is correct. And let's do those intersections in the orange color, and let's make them a bit larger. Maybe let's enlarge also those ones, and let's click play. So now it looks like it didn't work. Why is that? Okay, so yes, so we intersected the curve with the surface, but we forgot to use the other component. This one doesn't work on this kind of output, because here we intersect curve with the surface, and this one is used for curve intersections. So let's remove that, and let's find the correct component for our purpose. So this will find the points on curve surface intersection, and this one we have to use. And so let's see if that works. Let's play the script. Okay, length of undefined. There's something wrong when running this code. It looks like this didn't find any intersections. Yes. Maybe it's the second circle that we should be trying. Okay, so the second circle did find intersections. You see that here and here, but I'm not sure why the first circle didn't find intersection, because clearly it does intersect the cylinder. Circle 1. I'm not sure. Why is that? It should work. Well, now it does work, so I'm not sure what it was, but you see that the points are being correctly identified. And let's try and do let's draw the cylinder transparently so that we see those points better. Okay, so now we have the intersection between the circle and the surface, and we have intersection between two circles. And for our next check, we will be using two surfaces to find their intersections. And for this, I will create another second surface that will, for example, do the cylinder again. So we will be intersecting two cylinders, and let's create the variable for that cylinder. So it's a cylinder 2, cylinder surface, and we call the other one also similar. So let's set that value to be this cylinder. Let's change the base to be shifted a little on the z-axis, so by 0.5. And let's maybe adapt the axis to be like this. And let's draw that cylinder, and let's see how it looks like. So opacity, let's change the color to be a bit different. Okay, so this is a bit of more interesting geometry. I will increase the radius for that cylinder. So also the opacity, we can get it back to 1,1. And let's use the radius of 1, for example. Okay, let's play it. So now we see clearly that those two cylinders intersect, and we want to find this curve that goes between the two cylinders. So to do that, I'm gonna use the third option in intersection search. That will be the surface-surface intersection, which we, as usual, will just plug and draw, because the output of this intersection is just a list of curves. That means that we can just draw that immediately with the curve drawing component. So we will just draw that, and this will be it, and we will create that with a bit bigger width. And let's identify the intersection in red color. So let's also find our surfaces. So we intersect the first cylinder and the second cylinder. And let's play the script. And while it's not maybe clearly visible, there is a line going there. So, but to see better, I will make our cylinders a bit transparent. And here it is. This is the intersection between two cylinders, the curve itself. And maybe it's a bit too thick. We can just do it like this. You see that it executed, and all the intersections between all the different types of geometry have been found in the script. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Bye.